What if you owned FIFA? Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that the most powerful organization in football now belongs to you. Every World Cup, every billion-dollar sponsorship, every host nation, every major decision shaping the world's favorite sport starts with your approval. It sounds like the ultimate dream. Power, influence, global recognition. An organization followed by billions of people and watched in almost every country on Earth. But here's the twist. Owning FIFA doesn't mean you own football. You don't own Real Madrid. You don't own Manchester City. You don't own Lionel Messi. You don't own the stadiums. And you don't even own the World Cup trophy itself. So, what exactly did you just buy? How can FIFA generate billions of dollars every 4 years without owning most of the things people think it does? And why can a single decision inside FIFA change the future of entire countries long before the first whistle is blown? By the end of this video, you'll discover that FIFA isn't just running the world's biggest sport. It's managing one of the most powerful business and political ecosystems ever created. And you may realize that owning FIFA is far less glamorous and far more dangerous than anyone imagines. So, let's begin with the biggest misconception of them all. Let's answer the biggest question first. If you owned FIFA, what exactly would belong to you? Most people would probably say everything: the World Cup, the biggest football stadiums, the greatest clubs, the best players on the planet. But that's not how FIFA works. In fact, this is the first illusion you have to let go of. Because FIFA doesn't own Real Madrid, it doesn't own Manchester City, it doesn't own Barcelona, it doesn't own Lionel Messi, it doesn't even own the stadiums where the World Cup is played. So where does all of its power come from? The answer is surprisingly simple. FIFA doesn't own football. It owns the rules that connect football together. Think about it. More than 200 national football associations, 6 continental confederations, thousands of professional clubs, millions of registered players, hundreds of domestic leagues. Every one of them operates independently, yet they all agree to play under one system, one rulebook, one calendar, one governing authority. That authority is FIFA, and that's a very different kind of ownership. Imagine owning neither the roads nor the cars, yet controlling every traffic law in the country. That's much closer to what FIFA really is. It doesn't have to own the game, because everyone else depends on the system it controls. Every 4 years, the biggest sporting event on Earth brings that system together. 32, soon 48, national teams, billions of viewers, millions of tourists, governments investing billions of dollars just for the chance to host it. And every one of those tournaments exists because FIFA says it does. That single signature can redirect infrastructure spending, tourism, global media attention, and even political priorities. But if FIFA doesn't make most of its money from clubs or stadiums or players, where does the money actually come from? Because here's something even more surprising. For most of the 4-year cycle, FIFA isn't making billions every month. Instead, its entire business model revolves around one event that lasts only a few weeks. And somehow, that short tournament finances an organization that operates across the entire planet. So how is that possible? To answer that, we need to follow the money.
So where does the money actually come from? If you owned FIFA, you'd probably imagine billions of dollars pouring in from football matches every weekend. But here's the first surprise. FIFA doesn't own a football league. It doesn't collect Premier League ticket sales. It doesn't receive Champions League broadcasting revenue. And it certainly doesn't earn money every time Real Madrid or Manchester United play. For most of the 4-year cycle, FIFA's cash flow is surprisingly quiet. Then, everything changes. Because every 4 years, the entire business explodes into life. The FIFA World Cup isn't just the biggest sporting event on Earth. It's the engine that powers almost everything FIFA does. Imagine creating a product that billions of people are willing to watch, no matter where they live. Television networks compete fiercely for the broadcasting rights. Streaming platforms fight for global audiences. Advertisers know that during the World Cup, the world's attention is concentrated in one place. That attention is incredibly valuable. Every second of every match becomes advertising space. Every replay, every halftime show, every highlight clip, every logo beside the pitch, every official partner, all of it generates enormous commercial value. But television rights are only the beginning. Global brands don't simply sponsor football. They sponsor trust. They sponsor emotion. They sponsor unforgettable moments. When a child watches their first World Cup, the brands beside the field become part of that memory. That's why companies are willing to spend extraordinary amounts of money just to become an official FIFA partner. Because for a few weeks, football becomes the center of the world's attention. Then there's licensing. Every official football, every video game partnership, every collectible sticker, every replica trophy, every piece of World Cup merchandise sold across the globe adds another stream of revenue. Individually, none of these businesses seem enormous. Together, they become a commercial ecosystem worth billions. But here's what makes FIFA's model so unusual. Most global companies need customers every single day. Restaurants do, airlines do, retail stores do. Even streaming services depend on monthly subscriptions. FIFA doesn't. Its biggest event lasts only a few weeks, yet the value created during that short window supports an organization that operates continuously for 4 years. That's an incredible business model, but it's also an incredibly dangerous one. Because when so much depends on a single tournament, everything has to go right. Host cities, sponsors, broadcasters, security, transportation, politics, weather, public opinion. If just one of those pieces begins to fail, the consequences can ripple across the entire organization. And that's where owning FIFA becomes much more complicated than owning a business, because you're no longer managing football. You're coordinating one of the largest international projects on the planet. So, who actually carries all that risk? Certainly not FIFA alone. The answer is much bigger than most people imagine.
Here's where the story becomes even more surprising. If you owned FIFA, you wouldn't be the one spending billions of dollars to host the World Cup. Other countries would. Think about that for a moment. Cities compete. Governments campaign. Entire nations spend years preparing detailed proposals, all for the opportunity to host a tournament that lasts just a few weeks. Why? Because the World Cup is far more than football. For 1 month, the world's attention shifts to a single country. Billions of viewers, hundreds of thousands of visitors, global headlines, political leaders, celebrities, investors. Every hotel fills up. Airports become busier than ever. Restaurants, transportation, tourism, and local businesses all hope to benefit from the massive influx of visitors. But hosting the World Cup isn't as simple as opening the stadium gates. Long before the opening match, new highways may need to be built, airports expanded, public transportation upgraded, hotels constructed, telecommunications strengthened, security systems redesigned. Some countries invest billions before a single ticket is sold. And here's the fascinating part. FIFA doesn't pay for most of that infrastructure. The host nation does, which means every bid is essentially a gamble. If everything goes perfectly, the tournament can transform the country's global image. Tourism may increase. Foreign investment may follow. National pride reaches extraordinary levels. But if costs spiral out of control, or expected visitors never arrive, those investments can take years or even decades to recover. That's why choosing a host nation isn't just a sporting decision. It's an economic decision, a diplomatic decision, sometimes even a political one. Because once the world is watching, every success is magnified, but so is every mistake. Transportation delays, construction problems, security concerns, stadium issues, power outages. Every headline becomes international news. And whether people realize it or not, those moments don't just affect the host country. They affect FIFA's reputation too. Because your brand is attached to every decision, every ceremony, every kickoff, every headline. And protecting that reputation might be your most valuable responsibility of all. But reputation alone doesn't keep an organization alive. Power does. And that's where FIFA becomes unlike almost any company on earth. Because money explains how FIFA operates, but power explains why everyone listens. So, who actually gives FIFA that power?
By now, you've probably realized something. FIFA isn't the richest organization in the world. It isn't the biggest employer. It doesn't own hundreds of stadiums. And yet, when FIFA makes a decision, the entire football world reacts. Why? Because FIFA doesn't control football through ownership. It controls it through legitimacy.
Every international match, every World Cup qualifier, every continental competition, every player transfer between countries, every referee certification, every official rule change. They all exist inside a system that FIFA oversees. Think of it this way. Imagine the internet. Millions of websites, billions of users, countless businesses. Now imagine one organization, responsible for setting the global standards that allow everything to work together. That's much closer to FIFA's real influence. Its greatest asset isn't a building, or a trophy, or even billions of dollars. Its greatest asset is trust. Every national association agrees to the same laws of the game. Every federation accepts the same international calendar. Every World Cup qualification campaign follows the same framework. Without that shared system, international football simply couldn't function. But maintaining that trust is far more difficult than earning it, because every major decision creates winners and losers. One country celebrates after being awarded a World Cup. Another feels robbed. One rule change is praised by millions. Another is criticized across every sports network. One referee decision becomes tomorrow's headline. One controversy can dominate global news for weeks. And when those moments happen, people rarely blame individual officials. They blame FIFA, which means every decision you make is examined by billions of people. Fans, players, managers, sponsors, governments, broadcasters, even people who don't normally watch football. Because football has become much more than a sport. It's culture, it's identity. Sometimes it's politics. Owning FIFA means carrying the expectations of an entire planet, and expectations can disappear much faster than they are built. One poorly organized tournament, one major scandal, one crisis that damages public confidence, and decades of reputation can begin to crack. That's why the real challenge isn't creating the next World Cup. It's protecting the credibility of every World Cup that comes after it. Because in the end, people don't just buy tickets. Sponsors don't just buy advertising. Broadcasters don't just buy television rights. They all buy confidence that the biggest tournament on earth will remain exactly that. Lose that confidence, and everything else becomes harder. But there's one final question we haven't answered. After all the money, all the influence, all the prestige, would owning FIFA actually make you happy? Or would it simply make you responsible for the world's biggest game?
FIFA probably sounds unstoppable. Billions in revenue, global influence, the biggest sporting event on earth. But power has a price, and the more power you have, the more people expect from you. Every 4 years, billions of fans expect the perfect World Cup. Not a good tournament, a perfect one. Every flight must arrive, every stadium must be ready, every match must start on time. Every referee decision is replayed from dozens of camera angles. Every controversial call spreads across social media within seconds. And when something goes wrong, the world doesn't blame football. It blames FIFA. Imagine making one decision that instantly divides billions of people. One scheduling change, one disciplinary ruling, one controversial host selection. No matter what you choose, millions will believe you made the wrong decision. Because football isn't just entertainment. For many people, it's identity, it's culture, it's history, it's national pride. That means every FIFA decision carries emotional weight far beyond the game itself. But public criticism is only part of the challenge. Behind every World Cup, there are negotiations with governments, security agencies, broadcasters, sponsors, airlines, construction companies, technology providers, health officials, international media. Each one has different priorities, different deadlines, different expectations, and they all expect FIFA to keep everything moving. It's like conducting the world's largest orchestra, where every musician is playing a different song. Then there are crises you can never fully predict: a global recession, political instability, extreme weather, a cyber attack, a public health emergency. Any one of them can threaten years of planning. And unlike most organizations, FIFA can't simply postpone the world's biggest sporting event without enormous consequences. The countdown never stops. No matter what happens, the tournament must be ready. Because once the opening whistle is scheduled, the entire world is already watching. That's the burden of running football's biggest stage. But even that isn't the worst-case scenario, because there's one nightmare that every FIFA executive hopes never becomes reality. What happens if the World Cup itself fails?
Imagine it's opening day. The stadium is full. Billions of people are watching. Sponsors have invested fortunes. Broadcasters have planned coverage for years. Host cities have spent billions preparing for this moment. Now imagine something goes terribly wrong. Not a single mistake, a chain reaction. Transportation systems break down. Security incidents dominate international headlines. Technical failures interrupt live broadcasts. Fans lose confidence. Sponsors begin asking difficult questions. Around the world, the conversation is no longer about football. It's about failure. And that's when the real damage begins. Because FIFA's most valuable asset isn't the World Cup itself, it's credibility. Broadcasters don't spend billions simply to show football. They invest because they trust the tournament will capture the world's attention. Sponsors don't pay enormous fees just to place their logos beside the pitch. They invest in a global celebration. Host nations don't commit years of planning because they need more football. They believe the event will elevate their country's image. If that confidence begins to disappear, everything changes. Future sponsors become more cautious. Media companies negotiate harder. Host nations think twice before submitting a bid. Fans become more skeptical. Every partnership becomes more difficult. Not because football has lost its magic, but because trust has been damaged. And trust is incredibly difficult to rebuild. The financial losses would be measured in billions, but the reputational damage could last much longer. That's why FIFA spends years preparing for problems that most fans never even notice. Risk management, security planning, broadcast redundancy, emergency response teams, cybersecurity, medical coordination, legal preparation, thousands of people working behind the scenes so that 90 minutes of football can appear effortless. Because success isn't measured by what the audience sees. It's measured by everything they never have to think about. If viewers spend 90 minutes talking about the match, FIFA has done its job. If they spend 90 minutes talking about the organization, something has already gone wrong. And perhaps that's the greatest paradox of owning FIFA. When everything works, the players become heroes. The champions lift the trophy. The fans create unforgettable memories. But when something fails, the spotlight turns toward you. Not because you kicked the ball, but because you were responsible for protecting the game the world loves. That's the invisible weight of owning FIFA. Not the money, not the prestige, responsibility on a global scale.
So let's go back to the question we asked at the very beginning. What if you owned FIFA? At first, it sounded like the ultimate prize, the most popular sport on earth, billions of fans, the World Cup, global influence, unlimited opportunities. But now, the picture looks very different. You don't own the clubs. You don't own the players. You don't own the stadiums. You don't even control what happens once the referee blows the whistle. What you really own is responsibility. You're responsible for protecting the biggest sporting event on the planet, for keeping more than 200 football associations moving in the same direction, for balancing the expectations of fans, players, sponsors, broadcasters, governments, and billions of people who all believe football belongs to them. Because in a way, it does. Football isn't just a business. It's childhood memories, it's family traditions, it's national identity. It's the dream of a kid kicking a ball in the street, hoping one day to play on the world's biggest stage. And every 4 years, that dream reaches its highest point. The World Cup isn't valuable because of the trophy. It's valuable because billions of people choose to care. That trust can't be bought. It can't be manufactured. And once it's lost, it may never fully return. That's the invisible asset you'd spend every day trying to protect. Not the money, not the television deals, not the sponsorship contracts. Trust. Because without trust, there is no World Cup. Without trust, there are no billion-dollar broadcasting rights. Without trust, the entire system begins to fall apart. So if you owned FIFA, your greatest challenge wouldn't be making more money. It would be making sure the world's biggest game remains worthy of the world's attention. And maybe that's the biggest surprise of all. You thought you were buying football, but football was never for sale. You were becoming the guardian of something that belongs to billions of people. So here's the question. After everything you've learned today, would you still want to own FIFA? Or would you rather remain one of the billions who simply enjoy the beautiful game? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if there's another company, organization, or global empire you'd like to own next, subscribe, because the next story might completely change the way you see the world.